to the water management workshop as a part of Next Landscapes conference. I hope you enjoyed the previous lectures of our guests from all over the world. And today we will, in this workshop, we will look at the water management. And there will be plenty of time for a discussion. I hope the discussion will be fruitful. But before we start, let me say some technical things before. Before we start with the workshop and discussion, I would like to ask you all to mute your microphones and turn off your camera if possible, so we can have smooth presentation. Also, this workshop will not be recorded for YouTube, where you can find all the lectures from these 2 days. So if you want to review or share some of the presentations, they will be accessible on the conference website, but not this workshop. This is just for us. So again, welcome to the water management workshop as part of the Next Landscape conference. And I will start the workshop with a small task for all of you. I want you to share with us in the chat you have available, what is your name, where are you from, and what is your profession or occupation or background. I will use this information for steering the discussion that will follow the presentation, and you can also it will also help you to introduce yourself on the other to the other workshop participants. So please let us know who you are and from where you are in the chat. Thank you. So let's begin with our guest and our mentor for this workshop. Davide Caspani is a talented architect, a landscape architect and designer with a background in environmental architecture. His academic experience in the Netherlands has shaped his understanding of the natural and built environment in a remarkable way, working on projects with different levels of complexity, from the urban scale to regional scale. Regional planning. His approach to design is given first from a classical engineering approach for creating landscapes as a reaction to pragmatic demands. Secondly, by narratives that play a key role in the way the design takes shape, conveying identity and envisioning new future developments and opportunities inspired by natural ecological system. He has been working on many projects, from concept designs to tender-level submissions in Germany and Singapore, all of it in collaboration with many international architecture and engineering firms. Davide joined Land in 2019, and he is now leading one of the business unit as director. The recently awarded projects are the, for example, Scalo Porta Romana and Piazzale Loreto in Milan, and the regeneration of the central train station in Vilnius are some of the major activities of his team. So, Davide, welcome to the workshop, and the stage is yours for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invite. Thank you for the presentation. Hello, everyone. Okay, so as I said, I'm a landscape architect. I'm one of the directors here in Land, and Land stands for Landscape Architecture Nature Development. We are many people actually working in 3 different countries, guided by our mentor, Andreas Kieper, German landscape architect who actually lives since many years in Italy. We are 3 offices in 3 different countries, in Italy, Germany, and Switzerland, with more than 30 years experience and really one mission of reconnecting people with nature. We do so with many, let's say, projects and competition and research projects, mainly in Europe, but also actually internationally all around the world. While water, in my opinion, has a very, let's say, interesting layer of an involvement with how it is perceived, is very much a cultural thing. And that's some example. Now we have some slides here summing up our latest experience. For instance, here in Al Uruba Park in Riyadh, where we designed a park which is actually a very big water management area, but also we see water included in the urban setting as really a attractor of the public space. As well as in Moscow, where actually water has been integrated more into the nature and dynamic of this river park for the smart city of Moscow. Or another project in Budapest that we've been developing with Zaha, the architects, for the regeneration of the Zuglo district and the integration of an existing water channel close by. Or other example in Switzerland, for instance, here it's a project in Lugano for the regeneration of the Casarotte River. Our, let's say, story started in Milan with one very first, let's say, major concept of the green race. And this one led us to develop many actually projects in Milan, which is actually one of our main, let's say, market in Italy for sure. And we've been working in many projects of urban regeneration. This is Porta Nuova Varesine, which is this is in construction, and this is how it is today. A very lively place where actually water has been brought in as very much as an activator of the public space. Here we see some water games, some water fountains that really, let's say, activates and bring this dynamism into this space and attract people, and it creates this very much poetic, let's say, layer of reflection of the sky and the surrounding environment throughout the day and seasons. We work in other projects in Milan, like the former Expo site 2015, which is now a new, let's say, Milano Innovation District, or the recent winning of the Scalo Porta Romana, which was a former railway area, where we brought in water in a more, let's say, ecological manner, in a ecological corridor. So water has, in a way, many identities. As I was saying before, it's very much related to culture, in my opinion, the way we perceive it. Here, just some images to make you understand like what I mean with that, like, and also the different state of water, right? Like ice, or in a hot weather, or the very dynamism of such a delta situation. But sure, water is as well a very, let's say, dangerous element. Here, some of the, let's say, very situation we experienced this summer. This is Rhineland, Germany, Como Lake in Italy, or Turkey, and I'm sure that you can mention many others that I don't even know. So this one really calls us for a new for time to act, and I think that recently in media we really understand that public finally understands these needs of a new way of rethinking our urban and natural environment. And I think that I mean the call is upon us, professional as well as all the, let's say, politicians, and not only involved in this process, as well as, of course, following the direction of the EU, which is actually promotes and say that how important it is to, let's say, implement a nature-based solution for climate adaptation. There is a lot to learn from nature. And I would say that just when we look at such an image from a normal forest, let's say there is many phenomena that we can immediately quote, like infiltration, retention, cleaning, cooling, all, let's say, mixed in a more biodiverse environment. And when we look at the water sensitive design, we should really rethink and how to repair the urban water balance. So traditionally, or the way we traditionally look and plan our city was very much far away from how nature works. And we should really be inspired much more on the, let's say, on nature, and look at this, let's say, three phenomena of evaporation, filtration, and runoff. Well, I mean, they are very much unbalanced in our city. The runoff takes most of the cake. let's say, in contrast to what usually happens in nature, where evaporation and infiltration phenomena are much more, let's say, happening. So that's why the challenge is here is really to how to integrate this blue and green infrastructure in architecture, and really look at all the phenomena of the within the water cycle, from collection to biological absorption, filtration, sedimentation, infiltration, retention, detention, and storage, recycle, and evaporation. So this is very much of a challenge for us professional, but I would say that I mean, we should really push a bit more on regulation and how our cities are managed, because many of the, simply looking at this diagram, many of the things that we usually propose are very hardly, let's say, very hard to implement. Just by looking at this, when we imagine to deal or to manage private water from this building into public realm, well, this is a thing that it's usually not the case, because rules tells you that you cannot deal or manage private water in the public realm. So this, I think, is the first takeaway message here, that we should really, let's say, push forward and really make a bit pressure on let's say, public authorities, in order to perhaps rethink some of the rules that we have to deal as a planner, as a designer. So this is the first project that I would like to share with you, which is the Valle Lura. Some of this project has been already shared by my colleague Andrea Balestrini from the Land Research Lab in a lecture yesterday, but I would like to go a bit more in detail with these slides. So this is a project that started back in 2015. It's a water management area in a very highly urbanized area north of Milan, which is one of the area mostly, I mean, very dense, one of the denser, I would say, in Europe, after the Ruhr Island in Germany, or the Rotterdam area in Netherlands. So there are 3 municipalities involved. It's a very big river that actually has 14, 15 kilometers that runs through a very densely and urbanized area. And it's part of the, let's say, hydrographic area of the River Po, which is the major river of north of Italy that then flows, let's say, towards Venice, let's say. Well, the project has came to life because of trying to solve many of the problems of yesterday and today. So this issue has been happening since years, and these are some of the picture lately in the last few years before our intervention, let's say. So in order to do that, there was a very much territorial cooperation being established that started from the Lombardia region, which is the region of Milan, provinces, territorial district, municipalities, parks, territorial agencies, institution, and consortium, in order to really sign off a sort of river contract that deals with hydraulic risk, water quality, and river ecosystem services. And this river contract, in a way, is an instrument that aims to achieve the objective of the European directives on water and on floods, dealing, in fact, with the hydraulic risk and contributing to local development and natural development. So there was a very broad timeline, started back in the 97, and finally the, let's say, river contract was signed off in 2015. So the Lura project could start, but many others as well. And following that, then was 2 years of designing and construction. And then we see that immediately 2019 and 2021, there were the first 2 big floods, which actually could immediately test our project. Here we see a map that defines a bit of the risk and critical points. So this project was defined here, where we could actually find some space, because I was saying it's a very highly dense area, so we could just had to, you know, implement the project where actually there was space available to do that. And it was done here in order to prevent also issues in this more critical area south downstream. here another map that actually explains the, so let's say Milan is in this direction here, and here we found, let's say, spots in this area, which was, let's say, previously an agricultural area surrounded with also woodlands, packed and very much present into big cluster of infrastructure and residential and industrial area. Here we see some major infrastructure like road, the railway, another big highway. Another highway will actually come here in the next few years. So it's a highly dense infrastructure landscape. Here we see a satellite image of of the area of the intervention, which actually was a very nice green area with agricultural fields. But the project defined, let's say, three major basins that could deal with the water of the river. So from this very point, the water would be taken out, and water could flow into this first basin, and then into the second basin, and in a couple of days would actually keep flowing back into the river. New system of path has been defined. Many areas of agriculture have been turned into, well, natural development and water management, as well as many new area of woodlands. Here we see also another basin, the third one, which has not yet been built, because this one will actually deal with the water coming from the new infrastructure that I was telling you before, which is the highway, which will come here. Here you see that there is a sort of a line, which is basically the preparation of the land for the new highway, which actually will come here. And this basin basically will deal with the runoff of this new infrastructure. Well, here you see some images of during construction. Ideally, we had this. This is the first basin, so this is this one here basically. The design also, let's say, provides a permanent lake as an attractor of biodiversity. So this is a permanent lake, a bit higher in level of the water basin here. So this is a permeable area. Water cannot infiltrate here, either cannot infiltrate only in this very, let's say, center area, while all the rest is all infiltration. And here we see this manufacturer which actually controls the overflow of this area, and actually controls the level of the infiltration of the basin. Here's some other picture that actually compares the construction with the almost with the nowadays situation. We see here the permanent lake and the infiltration basin in this area. Here a picture of the during construction. Here is the permanent lake excavation. The water from the lake is taken from underground well. So water comes in here. We see that it's very deep as a lake. Usually when you want to build a natural lake, you try to go deeper as possible. So deeper it is, better it is for the lake and for the quality of the water. You should usually try to have an area which has let's say deeper water, and an area with shallow water, in order for create let's say biotope for wildlife. Deeper it is, better it is for the water, because it can sediment, create different temperature of the water. So the water quality and the circulation within the lake, also in the vertical layer, it's much better in quality. And here we see actually the area of the basin close by. During excavation, it's been found many of these conglomerate rocks, which then have been reused inside the project for, let's say, stabilize some of the areas against the erosion. Here you see also the path of water that enters the basin, as well as some the shore of the river has been let's say redesigned with bioengineering, with rocks, with wooden trunks, and the cocomat, in order to really consolidate the shore, and also with vegetation like salix to really consolidate the shore. Usually, if you want to do, I mean, you always need to consolidate the erosion in the outer curve of the river, as usually the floods and the pressure is much more on this area, the outer area, rather than the inside area. Here, see again some other pictures. You see that the main basin here, the lake here. Here, there's been also some, let's say, unplanned infiltration area. So this one actually then it goes away in really just a few days, infiltrates completely. And this one is the first basin. This one instead is the second one. Yeah, you see in the summer season, I mean, all this project it works only for gravity, so there is no pump involved. And here you see that during summer season, especially when it's very hot, there is some, let's say, algae formation. This one could be solved by enhancing a bit more the circulation within the lake itself. But that would require, of course, more energy and so on. So this one, that's you know, that's something that you learn also after the project, right? And not always. I mean, it's all let's say doable. But this is the final setting. You see some of these rocks that I was mentioning before as a focal point, interesting also for bird life. Some of the passages over the manufacture and infrastructure. Here again, some other picture of how nature actually is developing. And it's a place that it's very much enjoyable for people to go jogging, to get away from the urban busy life. And it's been very much appreciated in general as a project. Here again, some interesting picture. And here we have some picture of the flooding in November. So the basin, they worked very, very well. We did not notice any, let's say, major issue. The water stays in for a few days and then slowly is released back into the river. And here instead is just this August 21. Again, there was another major floods. All these paths are, let's say, in a safer level, higher than the overflow. So you're not gonna get your feet wet if you are up here. And here you see some major infrastructure that basically they deal with security. So once the water starts to go in the basin, there are some blinking lights and also some alarm that goes off and tells you basically to move away, to step away from if you happens to be, let's say, in this part here. So that tells you to step away and to go to the safety level. Here again, another picture, it's interesting detail. This one was one of the helicopter landing, which was requested during construction to deal with the emergency. And then at the end, we decided to keep it and to create a sort of an info point, designing the overall park, explaining the water system, and it becomes a very much, let's say, a spot, to meet. And it creates, it is one of the info point of the area, let's say. Here again, some other picture that actually describe a bit the design of this infrastructure. Of course, this work was not only done with by land, but it was very much of a collaboration with the hydraulic engineers. They worked with us on the project. Wildlife comes in, new species have been documented, so that's a very much of a achievement for the overall region. Here are some numbers that describe the 20 hectares intervention of 340,000 cubic meter of water storage, investment of 12 millions, new area of woodlands, wetlands, new trees, cycleway, info point, station for bird watching, and a biodiversity center, which is used much more for let's say, schools and didactic activities. And here again, another final picture of the project. Another project we've been busy with is still more or less in the same region. The project that I've been showing you now is more or less in this area, let's say. This one instead is a bit more in the east, which is called the water park. It's another smaller infrastructure, again in a very densely area. This is in Monza. There's a very famous park and Formula One truck. You might heard about it because of that. And here again, some let's say bird eye view of the area. So basically, the reason why they called us is that there was this small creek which actually could usually flood some of the industrial area and residential area on the side. So they envisioned and they found, let's say, this area as a possible, let's say, buffer area to buffer area to prevent this issue. So here, how it was before our intervention, the municipality actually started to dig something here in order to solve the problem, but actually wasn't done properly. So then they called us, and we brought in new concepts like water, nature, and community. We thought that it was adding this layer of community and functions was giving, could give the project much more, let's say, value. So we set some goals. Of course, let's say water management, first goal, the integration of the natural system as a second goal, and the integration of the community. And these three goals could lead us to a new identity of the place, which we at the end we call it the water park. So this is a bit the plan how actually works. You take the water from this small creek, which is then led into this big water basin. And then we provide some functions for the community as vegetable gardens. They can be rented out for the community, picnic area, and a water playground for kids and family. Again, another visualization. Here we see actually other elements that we add to control a bit erosion, like rocks, wooden trunks, and again, a sort of a lake, which is a permanent lake to attract biodiversity. Here, a bit of a diagrammatic way how we deal with the water layer. We get all the runoff that comes down from the northern area. We bring it into the basin, as well as the water that comes from the creek. And the water for the playground was initially thought to be able to be taken from the, let's say, underground wells and let's say using filters and tanks in order to give input to the playground. At the end, due to regulation and communication, let's say, with and discussion with the municipality, they went for the safe way, maybe not so sustainable, but to connect the playground with drinkable water. And that's another thing that goes back to my previous takeaway message, that I guess that, let's say, municipalities in general, they should try to be a bit more proactive and progressive in some of these thoughts. But it's never easy. It's never easy. So here's some of the visualization, let's say in a dry period with a playground active, which is all these mechanical pumps. So kids, they really need to pump their water if they wanna play with it. And here again, some other visualization in terms of let's say water events or very flat events. Here are some images during construction. Here is the construction of the lake in the middle. And here is the, let's say, transition between the playground and the water basin. Some areas that have been stabilized for the inlet of the water. And here we see again the playground area. And here some images just after construction. Here we see that some of the edges of the lake have been stabilized with these cocoa mat, which are these natural mats, which then they are further stabilized with vegetation, either normal grass or more, let's say, bushes and salix usually. Here we see again the steps that go down and define really the border between the playground and the basin. Here some of the game for the kids. Here the water pumps, and here we see some of these big rocks and trunks which have been located here to control a bit the erosion. And here again, you see these elements. And some of the games, which are inclusive games for kids with, for instance, wheelchair, that you could still be playing on these water tables. And this place is not yet been open. We're still working on it. This will be open in the next few weeks, I believe. But this is a bit of a few of the pictures of the materiality used in the project. So at the end, I mean, this is much smaller than the other project. It's only 1 hectare, 5,400 cubic meter of infiltration capacity of the basin. There's almost 5,000 cubic meter of ground we moved around, more trees, more planted shrubs, and in general, it creates very much a place for the community, let's say. I have one last project that I would like to share with you, which is a bit of a case study. This one is a project from my former experience in Singapore. This is a project done by Ramborszuur Dreizeitel. This project you can find online on this link, as it was honor awarded for the American landscape architecture in 2016. Well, Singapore is still dealing a lot with sustainability and water, as at this very moment it still imports, Singapore imports drinkable water from Malaysia. And actually they are now trying, they have been busy since many years of dealing or how to manage their water resources in a sustainable way, using the water reservoirs that they have in the north of the island. Here we see them very north of this picture. The water flows down all the way to the famous Marina Bay and pump it back into the reservoirs for the use of the urban area. So this Bishan Park, it's a sort of 3 to 4 kilometer park, which was constructed not many years ago. I think it's finished in 2009, I believe. Well, this is some images of how it is basically today. Before was actually in 2008, it was just a canal. So these canals are the result of the very fast urbanization and growth of Singapore in the 50s, in the 60s. Tropical weather, a lot of water. They need to deal with water in a very fast way and bring water away from the major urban area. So that's why they built immediately these water concrete ugly channels with the poor water, no passion, no poetry for this water, but just a water, let's say, channel. And instead, the idea resulting from a competition was to really bring back nature and let nature to deal with this water. So that's the park still has this function of water management. But and this is a bit the concept seen in section. So in Singapore, there are 2 major, let's say, boards: the National Parks Boards, NPB, that deals with the green infrastructure, and the PUB, the Public Utility Boards, that deals with the water layer. So if you see this image, you understand that the border line between these 2 entities, it's very well defined. It's a line. When you start to bring in this concept, well, then you see new overlapping. And this was the major challenge for them, because this overlap, that means overlapping of management, overlapping of safety, overlapping of cost, and all the, let's say, activities that before was defined by this line, now they have to overlap. This one was a very big challenge for the 2, let's say, entities on how to deal with this new, let's say, ecosystem and new approach. Many of the material have been reused to stabilize ground and topography, and even produce, let's say, sculptural elements. Here we see some images during construction of the place. bioengineering has been used for, let's say, for the stabilization of the shore. Here you see a patchwork of different bioengineering that have been used to test which one could work better. And the weather of Singapore actually in 12 months could give you immediately a response. And therefore it was chose, let's say, they choose the one that was better working for that. Here you see a bit the situation in the two, let's say, during storm event or after storm event. Here again, as the project in Lura, they do have, let's say, blinking lights, sounding alarm, even a megaphone that tells you to step away from the river in 7 different languages. As it is Singapore, a very multi-ethnic city, they had to tell and make it very democratic to everyone. They are very, very, let's say, in Singapore, they are very, very keen on safety, and that was one of the bigger issue to implement this project. And all these paths, these new bridges are in a safe level. So new nature has been, let's say, develops some of the new, let's say, architectural elements. They are, let's say, in dialogue with the existing and surrounding architecture, using the use of material and colors, new wildlife and occasion for people to discover nature is brought in the city, things that before was actually not possible, as well as the use of natural new infrastructure as cleansing biotope, which they in a way filter the water. Some of the water filtered by plants can actually infiltrate, and some other can be, let's say, reused for the water playgrounds, as well as we see here some of the wildlife that actually in a way populates this new park, as well as very interesting new activities for schools or research, or simply spaces for the new community. And Singapore, I mean, this project has been one of the first pilot projects for a very important program in Singapore, which is called ABC, Water, Active, Beautiful and Clean Water, which is still very much in development, and actually gave birth to many different projects. So not only Bishan Park, but many other projects are now in development in Singapore according to this, let's say, new strategical approach. Thank you, everyone. I think I'll leave you the word to Jan, and I'm happy to answer to some of your questions. Just keep it open and to clarify some aspect of this project. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Davide. Before we will start discussion with you, please prepare your questions and please ask your questions using microphone and even video camera. You can, if you will ask, you can raise your hand within the Zoom, you know how it works, and ask your questions. But before I will ask you to do that, please, Davide, I have first question. Can you also describe what is your job exactly in the Land Studio as a director of business unit? What does it mean? And also how it is connected to maybe some water management elements of your projects. So can you describe more what's your work and how it's related to this topic? Thank you.
Well, sure. Well, Land is organized in different business units. Each business unit has, let's say, a different strategic and market focus. Someone is working more in, let's say, defined geographical area of Saudi Arabia or Moscow or Russia, or some more, let's say, into the territorial planning scale, or more into the infrastructure area. I came to Land and I was very much busy with competition, and then we won many of this competition, and actually now we are happily developing some of this project. So I have a very young and very dedicated and passionate team, and we work on this project. Really collaborating with within the office with the many expertise that we have, from urban planners to agronomists to architect to landscape architects, so we say mainly, and as well as many let's say offices that work with us when we look at this project. Of course, a very important figure are engineers and hydraulic engineers. So we could never ever, let's say, bring to life such project without the help and the collaboration of hydraulic engineers. So that's very much of let's say, yeah, collaborative process that and that's their results, which I think is it's astonishing when you look at such an image and we understand the complexity of such an ecosystem. I believe that that's exactly the role of landscape architects. That sometimes I see us a bit as mediators, you know, between different disciplines, and really bring all these disciplines together and make them, let's say, in strict dialogue, and in order to pull out such a result. Then nature does the rest, I think.
Thanks. And we have first question from Katarina, I suppose. So please, you can ask your question to Davide.
Dobrý deň, neviem, či ma budete dobre počuť, ale respektíve vás poprosím preložiť otázku. Ale chcel by som sa spýtať, že či pri projektoch nemali niekedy problém so spodnou hladinou vody a ako to bolo napríklad s tým tokom z toho dna, či je to všetko o štrkových frakciách alebo balvanoch, alebo pristúpili k nejakými inými riešeniami, kedy sa ako keby v rámci tej prúdenia tej vody hýbe to spodné podložie.
Thank you. I will translate it into English. Katarina asked, how does it work with the groundwaters? How do you work with the groundwaters in your projects? And also, and I'm sorry I didn't catch the second part because of the poor connection, but I'm sorry. Yeah, and what happened, or how do you work if the ground levels, the groundwater levels are too high? And so maybe you understand my question.
Yeah, I would try to just jam around a bit on this topic. Well, I mean, yeah, groundwater level. It's a very yeah, it's very difficult, of course, to just give a straightforward answer of this one, because of course every situation has its own peculiar aspect, and every city or every environment has its own complexity. Groundwater has, for instance, if we take Milan into consideration, usually Milan as a city has a level of groundwater which is between -6, -8 meter from, let's say, from street level. So when you start planning such a area of, let's say, very highly urbanized with new infrastructure and new buildings, you always have to be careful. That's a very, let's say, critical points when you start to think about underground infrastructure, underground parking, and so on. So groundwater level, I mean, it's in this project, you as a big scale project, you never really have such issue, because you always and mostly deal with surface water. But in I think that the complexity of ground level water comes in much more when you deal in a urban environment. and it depends on the infrastructure you're actually dealing with. There are always, let's say, engineering infrastructure and solution that actually helps you to deal with, to actually reuse, even reuse the groundwater in some part of the project for different purposes, as well as let's say cooling system or heating system and so on. So the important things is that I would say we should always try to build let's say ecosystems which are much more let's say interacting with each other, and that's I would say it's a big challenge as a professional, as a landscape architect and engineer and so on.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other question from the other participants? You can ask Davide right now. Okay, we have one question from here, from the real world.
Hello, I'm Jana Pišková, landscape architect from Prague, and I would like to ask how people feel about safety with these retention lakes and canals, because sometimes the banks are smooth, but sometimes they are quite steep. So how they feel it?
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said before, in many of these projects, the safety is always a very complex and very first topic on the agenda. In all these projects, as I was describing, there's always a layer of infrastructure that actually tells you the immediate danger, step away from the let's say yeah, the most the layers in proximity of the water, and to step away to safety. In general, I think that people are very much enjoying this space, and it's never really been I mean an issue in my opinion. So people really enjoy these natural new hotspots, and sure, I mean these areas are not so, let's say, accessible, right? So you're not gonna really want to go down here and experience this landscape from so close by. So there are always places to look at from a higher perspective, from a point of view where you actually feel safe, even in a situation like this where it's calm and peaceful. That's why always we brought in a new, let's say, safe and controlled elements that makes you, the experience of water in a much more safety, way, as well as, let's say, if we go to the Singapore project, I would say that it's a really incredible result, because here it is really a park. So people really use it as a park, and that's really the two situation, the two dilemmas of this project. So sometimes, most of the days is like this, and people goes down and they have an incredible new experience of water, and then suddenly, well, water is coming, and you need to get out. You have, I mean, sure, you have time to get out. It's never really so immediate, the process. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, security and safety was always the first topic on the agenda when you propose such project, and the way you deal with it is much more almost at the political level rather than at the design level. So
if I would ask, can you also a little bit more elaborate about this political level in your projects? How hard it is to to push your design or to let's say negotiate or to discuss with the political representation or the investors that the design, especially with the safety concerns, will be functional and will work and it will be okay. Because sometimes, especially here in the Czech Republic, safety is first, and very often it means you need to construct really ugly and not functional safety elements within these constructions. So, but it does not work in the overall design. So, can you maybe say more about that? How you work with that on this higher level?
Well, this is always a big challenge, and well, I cannot agree more. And I mean, that's always a struggle. That's always a struggle. I think that. I mean, I would like to go back to an image just to dealing really on a project in Milan, which is the regeneration of the Scalo Porta Romana, which is the railway. And it's I had to go really at the beginning, which is actually this one here. So this is, for instance, an ecological corridor that runs close by a railway, and as the ecological corridor is actually 30 meters large, and it's basically it takes the area which is not buildable area. Let's say 30 meters from the railway, you cannot build anything as a building, and so. We decide as a designer to use this area as a natural and area as mitigation, and also as a buffer area to in order to deal and manage all the water of the master plan, purify the water and infiltrate the water. And this is basically a sort of a public area. It's one of the only public area within the whole master plan. So now, to go back to what I was saying before, politicians' regulation that tells you, that you cannot deal or cannot manage private water on public lands, and well, this is mostly a discussion between the designers, the proponents, so your client, and the way your client will actually deal with the municipality. So at the end, we'll always go down to let's say dealing with them and really explaining the necessity of and the benefits that such intervention could bring to the master plan. So there is no straightforward, there is no solution to this, rather than just push forward and let them understand the benefits of such intervention for the ecological, let's say, development and the benefits for the community. So I guess that this pressure really has to go on politicians in order that they will eventually change these rules, because that's very hard to really think and design a nature-friendly ecosystem, which then are not, let's say, we are not able to implement them just because of this regulation. So there is no straightforward answer, I would say, rather than just discussing and dealing with them and try to debate and try to really bend these rules somehow. It's always a provocation, in my opinion.
I think this approach works everywhere, or actually the problem is everywhere the same. Anyway, because every project is unique and you need to approach it uniquely. So anyway, if there are no other questions from the audience, I would also ask you, in the previous project, you showed that helicopter landing zone element that you connected or you integrated with some informational system for the visitors. Can you also show some other examples from your projects where you integrate more functions into one element, where you apply this multifunctional approach to landscape design, especially in case of water management? For example, increasing biodiversity in the water bodies, or using some artificial niches or artificial elements to accommodate more organisms. Do you have some other examples of this integration?
Well, yeah, I mean, in this project as well, I guess that I was, I need to find the right, I guess that this one was very interesting. I was telling you before that during construction, well, we knew that we could find some of these rocks here, which are called ceppo, which is let's say conglomerate at the end. We knew that we could find some of these during excavation, but actually we found many of them, literally tons of them. We didn't even know what to do with them. And so that became really rather of a problem. It became really an opportunity for the design. And we decided to place them around in order to really create more, let's say, control erosion of these areas. And at the end, they really became elements within the water bodies that could actually host and let's say give flourish somehow nature. That we see then at the end that there are some pictures where actually this bird lives can flourish, and then let's say vegetation can actually take place because of sedimentation on the rock itself. It creates some very unexpected elements in the design, like this natural island with this very, let's say, unexpected planting, right? So we didn't really plan and think about such elements, but so we used this opportunity and then let nature to develop, even let's say open to imperfection, which is one of the beautiful words and things about nature. I think that sometimes, you know, the unexpected happens, and even new dynamics and even new situations flourish without you can even think about it, but actually then happens. And then this one leads to I mean these new species, right? I mean, these are literally new species documented in the area, so that there was no such bird before in this area. Neither the Ardea alba in this area was previously documented. So that's an incredible achievement, not for the project, but in general for the ecological, let's say, regeneration of such area, which I was saying before. It's really in the middle of such a highly urbanized area, and that they really became a new natural hotspot for the overall surrounding, let's say.
Yeah. Could you, here is one question from the audience. Can you show this project in a larger scale in the context of surrounding urban area? Like if you can show us, you know, the location basically. Some Google view or something like, yeah.
So yeah, I have those, or I can actually, yeah, this is basically the area here. So south of this area, there is very south here, there is Milan, and this is basically, we go up north. As I was saying, this is one of the major highways north of Milan. This is the railway that goes towards Milano Central Station. And this is another secondary major road. Another highway will actually come here. So you see this trace, which is actually here. And it's been yet planned, and I think it will be built in the next coming years. And it's a very, let's say, you have to think that this is just a patchwork, but if you zoom out and out, that it's very much it's very dense. This area, it's very dense. You can try to Google it and see if I can show you if you want.
And also, before you do that, when we were talking together before this event, this workshop, you said you also have some example from Netherlands, and that you could show us if there will be some spare time. And we still have some spare time. And I think if there are no questions from the participants, as there are no. So can you show us there? I would be really interested in that project.
Yeah, this is another project in Denmark, Copenhagen. It's another case study of the same office here, Ramboll Dreiseite, which is a very leading office when we talk about water management. They're very interesting because they have their own department of hydraulic engineer in the office, and they work really hands in hands with the water engineers. So this is another project that won the award of excellence in planning in 2016, which is called the Cloudburst formula. So this was basically, this picture was taken in July 2011 during a very extreme weather event. And let's say after that, Copenhagen actually, let's say, understood that there was the need of approaching the problem in a totally different way. And so they started really to a new planning project, which was in a way of these 6 steps from data and investigation, modeling and mapping, cost of doing nothing, which is very interesting. How much does it cost if we do not do nothing? Right? Or design and qualify, involvement and iteration, cloudburst economics, as well as all the, let's say, more proactive or actually design-wise actions to be taken. So this process led to a very participative and very interesting involvement of the different disciplines in Copenhagen, and they started to mapping the overall let's say area of Copenhagen city in order to understand really where are the potentials, where are the critical spots, and what actually could be done in order to let's say yeah, improve the situation. They also, of course, started to define a new concept that to control the water towards the major water buffer of Copenhagen, Sanjongens Lake. So here they started to map road, streets, green streets, parks, areas where they could actually, let's say, they could actually be used as a buffer or as water basins, and also areas that they could be in somehow transformed into more sponge park, let's say. And so for instance, this is just an example of the existing parking, a lot transformed or designed to be transformed into a park. Here's just an image that shows the very complexity of such a project. So you have the public utilities, landscape architect, the water utilities, the engineers, the urban planner, the road maintenance, traffic, park and nature. So all these people, they really started to let's say act together from just after the cloudburst event and towards, let's say, the definition of strategic planning, and from this planning, more than 200 different projects has been defined and now under development. So there's been, let's say, identification of different areas from parks, plaza, streets, green streets, urban canal, urban creek, retention boulevards, and boulevards. And let's say, in a way, there's start to rethink some of these linear infrastructure in order to make them, let's say, more suitable and more flood-prone areas. So they rethink really the section of this of some of the streets in order to create always some safety zone for let's say passages, implementing rain gardens, and really rethink the section of the road to make them in a way always some retention volume possible, actually detention volume possible in the road. So from a normal conventional street with a crowned street will become a more say V-profile street in order to really contain water in case of a rain event. And even the really small volume was counting and really let's say acting in this in the direction of storing water even for a very small period of time. This as well an example for the very big big boulevard would actually would let's say could become a place for the community, as well as really become a retention volume for in case of flood events. So here are some of the diagrams that shows the intervention of let's say the rethinking of the St. Jorgen's levels of the major canal was the major, let's say, intervention, as well as the let's say rethinking of the communication between the city itself and the outer sea levels, with the construction of subsurface tunnels and so on. This is a very complex project, which of course this is just a previous studies that show the overall idea of implementing such a robust and very massive upgrades of the infrastructure of a city. And I can understand that once you of course you start to rethink each of street and area of the city, you have to deal with many smaller complexity that at this scale you must let's say avoid in a way in order to really bring forward your concept. Then the challenge is after, when you really have to in a way implement the overall concepts that have been let's say defined in such a master plan study. Here's some of the let's say visualization of St. Jorgen's lake, some areas, some new areas actually that have been defined for the, let's say, as a retention areas or retention basins, always, let's say, trying to define some areas just by levels, which are safety zone for the, let's say, circulation of people flows. So all these areas are, the levels of these areas are controlled with the overflow systems. So you know that actually water cannot go over these levels because you control the level of this one, even in the flood events, and so that you are sure that you always keep this area as dry and safe for people. And yeah, again, a bit of bringing in this topic of nature and nature regeneration as recreating, let's say, natural edges of the lake. So the original lake edge was actually here. The level has been lowered in a way and creates a new buffer system, buffer areas within the city in order to deal with the flood events. So this is a project that yeah, I was keen to share it with you because actually it's a bit of a different study. This is a much more, let's say, on the planning point of view. And as I said, out of this project, the Copenhagen municipality has given and starting to define many smaller projects. I say 200, but there might be even more in order to really implement and to really try to bring into reality the concept which was in a way defined during this Copenhagen Cloudburst formula.
Thank you. I know that some of you in the audience know the Copenhagen Cloudburst plan. It's very interesting for urban planners how the city approach the problem of sudden floods or cloudbursts. Davide, before we will conclude, because we are running a little bit out of time, I would ask you, because when I was listening to you, I realized that especially here, we know that this complex cloudburst plan exists, and it's always I'm always happy to hear from someone else who were working on it, because for us it's very inspirational, because Prague, for example, also suffers from flood risks, and we would use some of that design here as well. Do you know about some other cities that have this complex programs or plans elsewhere, not just Copenhagen? But do you know, because you are in this field for some time, do you have some more examples that you can just add so we can Google it up?
Well, at the moment, it doesn't really come to my mind, but many cities actually are actually bringing forward this topic. I mean, if you just think at what is New York has been doing in the latest year with the Big U project in order to really make safe its own urbanization. That is sure a big intervention, which they are hopefully now developing. I actually don't really know the state of that project. Well, I mean, in general, I think it's an issue that every city should deal with, and I really hope that I mean. Next time when we talk, we could talk many more of these. We could actually discuss many more of these Copenhagen cloudburst formula, because this is at the end was 2016, so it's already 5 years ago, and it's quite a shame that I'm actually don't have many more examples to show you. I'm sure that there are, guys. I'm sure, but and maybe people in the audience know more than me about this. So I invite them to share the information if you have some.
So if you know about something like that from other regions or cities, please share with us. We would be very interested in that. There is one more question from the audience in chat regarding how much these measures that you are applying on the river. So, for example, the widening the river flow, the river banks, creating larger capacities for floodwaters. Does it have some effect also down the stream? Or is it more local measure for local flood management? Or do you know? Did you work with this feature of these more nature-based solutions to managing floods, not just locally but also in a more catchment approach? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, yeah, in a way, when you look at this project, what it was done here was really to prevent floods, not locally, not really in this area, but very much to actually prevent and to lower the risk of whatever would happen in the southern area. So when you act along such stream, I mean, no matter really where you act, but you always bring benefits along the stream, of course downstream. So I mean, this intervention, as I was saying, doesn't really bring a special benefit in terms of lowering the risk on this area, but rather in the downstream area. What it brings here is more, let's say, accessibility to nature, benefit for the local community because they have a new space to enjoy and to use, but it doesn't really, let's say, prevent or lower the risk of the hydraulic flooding risk in this area itself, but really more downstream. So you always, when you act on such project, you always have to really think of the overall ecosystem and really look at the bigger picture. And that's why, I mean, you need planners, and that's why you need a hydraulic engineer, because you cannot really focus on your small intervention here without looking at the big, let's say, organism and really studying the overall element in its complexity. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, I see no other questions. I would like to thank you, Davide, for your talk, your presentation, your examples. It was really interesting to see how do you approach the water themes and water elements, water management in your projects, and also that you have experience from more strategic and more complex projects as the Copenhagen cloudburst. Thank you very much again. Thank you, our audience that were listening to us and asking some questions. And I will just wrap it up here. Thank you again. Thank you that you were participating on the Next Landscapes conference, and hopefully see you here next year again. So thank you and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.